Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 262, Separate Ways. If I do, I'm afraid your waist will break. Xiao Qi said with a ghost of a smile. Although there had never been explicit instructions, Shenzhequan had indeed injured his waist and could not stand up to the torment. Shenzhequan held back for a moment and was just about to put his leg back down, but Xiao Qi did not permit him to. Instead, he grasped this ankle in his palm, pressing it against himself. Oh! Shenzhequan drew out the end of his words. You want me to sate myself by feeding on fantasy, much like quenching my thirst by looking at plums. It's getting late. Xiao Qi said, but still, he did not let go. Shenzhequan initially still meant to say a word or two, but the hand grasping onto him suddenly began moving. If before the 9th month, Commander-in-Chief Qi is still indisposed to deploy troops, I will not wait any more. Xiao Qi's attire was all in order, and nothing seemed amiss looking at his upper body. Even the way he spoke was no different from how it usually was. Given the means the emperor resorts to, she will not agree to the commander-in-chief's deployment of troops. Furthermore, Shenzhequan's voice suddenly went soft, as if he had melted. Xiao Qi took off his clean sock. There was still the tablecloth hanging down around the table. Spurred along by the movements of Xiao Qi's palm, Shenzhequan's knees pressed gently against the table board. His bare, treading foot worked through the intricately decorative patterned robe, and that fabric chafed against the underside of his foot, belying the hardness blanketed under the softness. Besides, Commander-in-Chief Qi has to consider the 5 commanderies, too. Xiao Qi picked up from where Lanzhou left off. Penetrating deep into the desert takes time and effort. She has to weigh her priorities. Even Qi Shi might not necessarily be willing to go ahead with this battle if it drags on. The corner of Shenzhequan's eyes reddened, prompted by the tidal waves of heat. You told General Lu the other day that you were going to wait for Qidong. At that time, the emperor still had yet to show her mettle. Looking at it now, the chances of Qidong deploying troops is slim. Xiao Qi stopped teasing Lanzhou when he spoke to this point. This year, you gathered grains from the 4 prefectures of Huai Province, Cha Province, Chse Province, and He Province to resolve the dilemma of putting food on the table. Although we made it in time for the spring plowing, the Huai Province granary is lost. Now that Tao Ming has fled, the imperial court will naturally have to send someone else to manage it. It'll be hard to do business with them again next year. And with the port of Yanji and the Shi clan's copper mines sealed, Libei's mutual province trade market business is going to fall by half. Lanzhou, we will not be able to afford to feed the Qidong garrison troops next year. Chu capital did not give grains when Qidong dispatched troops to the Qingsha tribe this time, but Qi Zuyan still had confidence. But where had her confidence come from? Other than Shenzhequan, who else was there in the world who could be so generous as to supply a garrison troop the military grains they needed? Xue Zhuo was not a fool. He was well aware of who had given the garrison troops their grains. He just did not expose it right to Qi Zuyan's face. As Qidong had deployed troops to assist external forces this year, the military fields of 3 out of 5 commanderies had no one to farm the land, so it was inevitable that the harvest from military farming would suffer a drop. This, in turn, resulted in Qi Zuyan's military provisions needs this year being even higher than the previous years. The only thing worth rejoicing was that the spring plowing of 4 commanderies' commoners' fields was proceeding as usual, so she only had to worry about the grains for the army. But even so, the military grain expenditure for 300,000 soldiers was frightfully immense. And this had yet to take into consideration the invasion deep into the desert, which was a completely different matter from her leading troops to launch a surprise attack. After the victory of the Duan province battle, the expenditure for fortifications and defenses in the various prefectures was bound to grow exponentially. Not only that, the 6 prefectures were already beginning to take shape. Shenzhen had to supply year-round military provisions to the 120,000 garrison troops of the 6 prefectures, as well as continue to supply military provisions to Libei's 120,000 armored cavalry. Add the Qidong garrison troops to the equation, and the burden of supporting a grand total of 540,000 troops and horses would all fall upon him. Wang Xian wrote to me and said that he sent you a letter half a month ago, in which he elaborated on the stakes involved. Xiao Qiye switched to a more comfortable posture. You didn't reply. The underside of Shenzhen's foot was still sticking to Xiao Qiye's bulging and erect member. Leaning against the chair, he said, the advisors had yet to draw up an estimate for a budget half a month ago, so I put a hold on Wang Xian's letter and did not reply. The advisors in residence are good, but they are mostly from the countryside. They are talented, but they are not as well versed in the trade as officials like Wang Xian. Wang Xian served as the secretary for the Ministry of Revenue and often engaged with the Ministry of War. Every year, he has to deal with us military officers who enter the capital to ask for our money and grains. He is well acquainted with the various regions' military expenditures and military grains needs. Xiao Qiye had been resting at home as of late, and the issue that had been on his mind the most was the military provisions, too. It was all too wonderful for the 3 armies to join forces as one, but it was also too difficult. The equipment of the Libei armored cavalry wore out too fast, and the back-end squad still had to bring along the military craftsmen when they were transporting military provisions. Once the convoy squad stepped out of the battle zone, there was no more bridle path for them to take further east. The barren sands of the Gobi Desert were all the 12 tribes' territories, so they had to increase the numbers of troops for the transportation of military provisions as a protective measure, but increasing manpower meant increasing military grains. The farther away the Libei armored cavalry went, the more grains they would consume. Then, there was also the need to plan for all possible contingencies that might happen along the way. This was much harder than fighting a defensive battle. Last year, Xue Xiaozuo abandoned Quan City and Loxia Pass to defend the 13 cities of Juexi alone. At that time, it didn't feel all that impressive. Finally looking awkward, Shenzhen sighed. Only now do I learn just how impressive it was. Who did not want Qizuyan's military strength? Shenzhen wanted it, too. He only had to take down the Qidong 5 commanderies, and it would be impossible for Chu capital to turn the tide in their favor even if the current emperor was Emperor Guangcheng himself. All along, Xue Xiaozuo had been indifferent to Zongbo and Libei's battles. He let Shenzhen recruit soldiers and buy horses at the beginning of the year and did not even pursue the matter of Qidong's military grains. This was all another way of wearing Shenzhen down. Zhang Qingshan is truly a great help. No wonder the emperor wanted to use him to contest Xue Xiaozuo. This person shouldered the responsibility for the great Zhou granaries all alone with just his unyielding dauntlessness. The expression in Xiao Qiye's eyes was deep and penetrating. Lanzhou, the battle you are going to fight is even harder than mine. Shenzhen did not reply to Wang Xian's letter in consideration of Xiao Qiye. Similarly, Xiao Qiye was also now giving up on the Qidong garrison troops in consideration for Shenzhen. Xiao Qiye shifted the chair away and bent over to pick up the wooden clogs. However, he did not put them on for Shenzhen, but set them aside neatly. He released his grip on Shenzhen's hand and leaned over to stroke Shenzhen's cheeks, whispering, "I'll go by myself." The corners of Shenzhen's eyes reddened, but there was no surge of passion in those expressive eyes of his. *******. The watchman's clapper struck a few times late into the night. Hugging his legs close to himself, Feng Quan leaned against the foot of Li Jianting's bed. He did not fall asleep, however. After a little less than an hour, he heard Li Jianting say from within the lowered drapes, "Aren't you going to sleep?" Resting his chin on his knees such that one side of his delicate, refined face was buried, Feng Quan answered, "Your Majesty has had difficulty sleeping for several days. We should summon an imperial physician." With her eyes open, Li Jianting turned slightly to the side so that her back was to the lowered drapes. I'm just not used to sleeping here. Silence descended in the palace interior for a moment. Have you seen Shen Zequan before? Li Jianting asked. I saw him during the reign of Xian when he had just emerged from the Temple of Penitence. Rumors have it that his mother was a dancer from Duan province. Li Jianting seemed to be seeking confirmation. Is this true? Yes, it's true. Feng Quan moved his numbed legs. He's the eighth son of Shen Wei, born of a concubine. He was not a favored child in the Prince of Jiangxing's manor, and was sent away to a private residence in Duan province very early on. He has relations with Ji Gang, the former vice-commander of the Jin Yue. When Duan province fell into the enemy's hand, he was in the Hashi sinkhole, too. After a moment of silence, Li Jianting said, Qi Huilian is a veritable extremist to dare to cast aside his prejudices to impart all he had to him without reservation. But Shen Zequan is small-minded and vindictive. Feng Quan turned his head to the side. Ji Lei had a feud with him and so he made Ji Lei suffer a fate worse than death. If Han Cheng had not been so thick-headed to keep resisting that day at the banquet, Your Majesty could very well dismiss him from his position and send him into exile in Zongbo to see how Shen Zequan treats him. No doubt he will also make Han Cheng wish he were better off dead. The shadows of the trees outside the windows fell upon the ground. The palace in the dead of night was silent and totally devoid of human voices. You are Muro's younger brother by blood. Li Jianting changed the topic. Feng Quan's expression cracked a little, but he did not reply rashly. You became a eunuch before Muro entered the palace. At that time, she was already Prince Chu's favored concubine. Why did you have to enter the palace to suffer? Li Jianting's eyes turned slightly. You are not like Fu Man, who has been to the eunuch school, but you are well versed in the classics. Given Muro's family background, being able to read is already not bad. Feng Quan immediately kneeled on the ground. This humble slave, this humble slave. I can see that both of your ears aren't newly pierced, but the former emperor has never rewarded you with ear ornaments, and it's highly unlikely for him to do so. Those who can wear pearl or gem earrings at an early age are either of lawful birth or noble blood. So, where, Li Jianting propped herself up and paused for a moment before looking at the lowered drapes, exactly are you from? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The Guqin strings jolted with a hum. Looking as if he had just woken up from a dream, Qiao Tianya raised his hand with the intent to rub the center of his forehead, only to realize that the skin on the pulp of his finger was torn. The fact that Commander-in-Chief Qi has yet to reply means that she's displeased with his lordship for wanting to hand the Qingsha tribe's territory over to Haraguo. Yao Wenyu stopped talking and looked into the inner chamber through the drapes. This matter is a difficult one to deal with. The fear is creating a rift with Qidong. Kongling followed Yao Wenyu's gaze. Sanjiao has been restless. Why not come out and have tea with us? Qiao Tianya wiped the bit of blood off with his thumb and leaned back in the rattan chair. With a smile, he said, since it is at your invitation, I shall respectfully comply. With that, he set the Guqin on the table, rose to lift the curtain, and stepped out. The weather was fine today, and a tea table had been set up under the eaves. They did not seem to be discussing official business, but more like sampling tea. Yao Wenyu was dressed in a green robe with wide sleeves, and when he drank his tea, the red thread appeared ever so imperceptibly. Qiao Tianya did not stand on ceremony and sat down on the chair beside Yuan Zhou. What fine tea is it? Qiao Tianya accepted the tea Gao Zhongxiang handed to him. He took only a sniff before saying, oh, the height of spring from He province. Don't be misled by how he's no different from a general, always astride his horse wielding his blade. Kongling pointed at Qiao Tianya. He is, in fact, a tea connoisseur. Make merry to the fullest while the going is good. Qiao Tianya sipped his tea. If I had money, I'd want to satisfy my appetite to dine and wine. As long as I can sample all the fine tea and fine wines, I'd be happy to spend the money regardless of the cost. With his eyes lowered, Yao Wenyu said, "You should learn from Xinwei." Gao Zhongxiang hurriedly waved his hands. "On the contrary, I envy Commander Chiao. Me, I just want to save up money to build up the family finances so that I can marry a virtuous wife when the world is at peace." "Sanjiao isn't married either," Kong Ling asked. "Don't you feel anxious to do so? Look at Lao Fei the 10th. He's not married either, is he?" "They are in no hurry, but of course, I'm burning with anxiety." Qiao Tianya set down the teacup and said with a straight face, "I've been wanting to earn this sum of gift money so much that I have been tossing and turning all night." The various gentlemen burst into laughter. Qiao Tianya turned his face to the side to look at Yao Wenyu. "Mr. isn't married, either. Don't you feel any urgency to?" The flowers on the branch fell amongst Yao Wenyu's sleeves. He turned his gaze to meet Qiao Tianya's eyes. When the wind blew off the flowers, it also sent a waft of his slightly bitter medicinal scent over to Qiao Tianya. "Used to," Yao Wenyu answered. "But it doesn't matter now that I have Hanu." Other than Qiao Tianya, everyone present did not know much about Yao Wenyu and the Commandery Princess Zheyu. They had only heard rumors that the Commandery Princess Zheyu wanted to marry him, so naturally, they thought he was referring to her. If you ask me, there are 3 regrets in life. Not being born as Hanu is one of them. Qiao Tianya moved to hug Hanu but grasped hold of Yao Wenyu's wrist behind Hanu's plump body. "Or I could have rested all day and night on your lap, fantasizing to infinity and beyond even in my dreams." Yao Wenyu's expression shifted slightly. He did not expect Qiao Tianya to be so gutsy, and in his fluster, he started to cough. Commander Qiao often surprises one with his words. It'd be wonderful if he could engage in a philosophical discourse with Yuan Zhou. Gao Zhongxiang sighed with emotion. "I wonder if I will ever have the chance to see Yuan Zhuo's literary grace on full display. Philosophical discourses that are mere rhetoric are detrimental to the state." Yao Wenyu raised his hand to cover his mouth. His wrist was a little red. "I have yet to finish my words from earlier. Commander-in-Chief's lack of reply means she's displeased with Harago. When all is said and done, we were not the ones who fought and took down the Qingsha tribe territory, so we can't force the issue." Kong Ling nodded. "I'm worried that Commander-in-Chief Qi might bear ill will towards his lordship because of this. We want to leverage their military force to fight another, but Harago is a Biantia Scorpion, after all. It's only reasonable for the Commander-in-Chief Qi not to trust him. This is only part of it." Kong Ling exchanged glances with Yao Wenyu and slowly shook his head. "The worst fear is Commander-in-Chief Qi might be suspecting his lordship of threatening Qidong with this move. The Qingsha tribe lies close to the Bianjun Commandery," Yao Wenyu said. "Even if Commander-in-Chief Qi doesn't think so, the various generals of Qidong will. They have had enough of being held under duress by the army inspecting eunuch of Chu capital. No doubt they will not agree to let the Scorpions keep a close watch on them again. If Qidong isn't willing," Kong Ling said, "then all we can do is to make other plans." *******. A candle was lit in the military tent. Qi Zuyan sat with a leg propped as she squeezed her neck and listened to Qi Wei speak. "Tell Lu Guangbai to stop sending letters. He indeed doesn't have the burden of military supplies, and his 20,000 infantry soldiers can leave at just the drop of a hat." She stared at the top of the tent. "Even Jiming and Xiao Qi have never brought this matter up again. General Lu has served under the Commander-in-Chief for the longest time," Qi Wei said. "He knows of your capabilities, so it's only natural for him to want to persuade you to deploy troops. I understand his desire to fight the Biantia cavalry." Qi Zuyan frowned slightly. "But Great Zhou has never gone deep into the desert. It's a long journey to make, and danger lurks all around. Once all the 3 armies have been mobilized, who is going to ensure the safety of the encampments? The Scorpion in Chu capital is still around." Qi Wei knew of the predicament Qizuyan was in. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "If you were to reject them at this moment, I fear you will earn the infamy of forsaking your integrity for gains." No sooner had Chu capital conferred her the title of Prince of Dongli than she turned against Zongbo and Libei while the garrison troops were still eating Shenzequan's grains. Anyone who caught word of this would be inclined to condemn her. Qizuyan couldn't care less. As they wish. There is nothing in the world you can't control more than wagging tongues. This account is tough to square off. In Zongbo's view, their giving of grains to feed the garrison troops is an act of great kindness, Qi Wei said. But if weren't for the war in Libei being at a critical point and Zongbo needing us to mobilize troops to go to their aid when their gates were breached, Shenzequan's grains would not have come this easily either. They are people who scheme for world domination. They know how to grasp the opportunity. Qizuyan's side profile was serious. There was no trace of her usual cheeky smile. "I was helping myself by helping Libei and now, I'm also helping myself by not deploying troops. Qidong and Libei are brothers who go through adversities together, but the crisis in Libei has already been quelled and Cian's desire to continue pushing further in will smack of militarism. Refugees abound after the empire started disintegrating. The wars this year and last year were inevitable. I know Amuir is already showing signs of fatigue, and this is an excellent time to crush the alliance of the 6 tribes. But the 8 cities' granaries are empty, and commoners are dying on the streets. Yang City in Juexi is hit with a drought and yet Zhang Qingshan still has to do his best to supply grains to Chu capital and Qidong after autumn. These grains all had to be taken from the common people. Of Shenzequan's 6 prefectures, 3 have yet to reach the bumper harvest year, so he also has to rely on the granaries in He province. It's exhilarating to be fighting a battle, but I can't go." Amuir was an exceptional man, and the 6 tribes of Biancha were the bane of Great Zhou's generals. If they were to emerge victorious after penetrating deep into the desert this time, then no matter who was to rule the state in the future, the names of the Libei armored cavalry and Xiao Qiye would go down in history. And besides, as a general, who would not want to pit themselves against such an opponent? Qizuyan snuffed out the candle wick, and the interior of the tent plunged into darkness. She sat for a moment, then said, "I voice it out, you write it down. Tell Shenzequan that even if the Qingsha tribe's territory were to fall into disuse, I will not permit Harago to set foot on it. Next, tell Xiao Jiming that I, Qizuyan, may be acquainted with him since our youth and see him as a bosom friend, but my Qi clan is still a subject of Great Zhou. Fighting against foreign foes together is my duty, but empowering Zongbo is treason. And finally, tell Lu Guangbai, I wish him great success in his military exploits and in seeking redress for his previous humiliation, but this time, us siblings will longer be going the same way." A solitary lone goose cried at the moon as it flew across the horizon of the Bianjun commandery. Qi Wei put the respective letters away and turned to step out of the tent. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Yellow sand rustled under those military boots, and a palm grabbed up a handful of the yellow sand. Lu Guangbai had his back to the dusky sky, the letter from Qidong still between his fingers. He squatted for a while, then put the letter away. The sand in his palm trickled back to the ground. "Commander-in-Chief Qi, treat this letter as you would me in person. In dereliction of duty, I left the commandery without due authorization, and for that, I have failed the elders of Qidong. Unless I step onto the battlefield and slay the enemies, my aspirations will never be realized. I will always be a general subordinate to Commander-in-Chief Qi. We may not be able to tread the same path and fight together this battle, but the moon shines bright over the lands of the country. I will not let Commander-in-Chief Qi down." End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 263, Lao Hu. In the 8th month, the autumn harvest was sent to the granaries. Acting on Shenzequan's orders, Wang Xian went on an inspection tour with Yu Xiaozhe to the 6 prefecture granaries, where he organized Zongbo's grains and had the details recorded into books for submission to Duan province. The horse carriage crushed over the gravel. All donned in a round-collared robe, Wang Xian watched through the window as the city of Duan province grew gradually closer. The moat is still under construction, but the city gates are all repaired. Yu Xiaozhe pointed out to Wang Xian. Brother Minchen, this is where his lordship defended the city. Wang Xian nodded and wiped the sweat from his forehead. When Yu Xiaozhe was still in Chu capital, he had some contact with Wang Xian, but owing to the different nature of their duties, he had merely a nodding acquaintance with him. It was not until the 7th month, when they worked together, that they really became familiar with one another. He said comfortingly, "His lordship treats others with magnanimity. Since he is willing to use you, it means he is willing to trust you. There is no need for you to keep dwelling on what happened in the past." Wang Xian said with a bitter smile. "I was relegated from the capital and exiled to Zongbo. If the second master is not looking out for me, my head would have already rolled. I'm beyond grateful to his lordship for letting bygones be bygones, so how would I still bear grudges? I'm just afraid that I'd be too inarticulate to answer in the hall later." Yu Xiaozhe knew of Wang Xian's misgivings. After pondering it over, he said, "Brother Minchen, look at me. I came to Zongbo at the behest of my teacher, Censor-in-Chief Sen, to negotiate peace with his lordship. The talks later failed, and returning to Chu capital was no longer an option. I initially thought of buying a few mu of fertile lands in Zongbo and becoming a commoner from then on, but his lordship promoted me, making me a surveillance commissioner of Zongbo. Brother Minchen was demoted and relegated because you were caught in the crossfire of Second Master's bribery case and framed by Fu Linye and those people. Second Master is a man who values ties, and he has always remembered this incident. This time, Brother Minchen successfully prepared Libei's military grains without taking the credits. Whether for official or personal reasons, his lordship will not make things difficult for Brother Minchen." Feeling slightly relieved, Wang Xian waved his hand and said, "My contribution is too insignificant to be worth mentioning." The horse carriage arrived at their destination and passed through the overhanging gate that had been lowered. Both of them got off the carriage one after another and saw Fei Shen, who was waiting at the entrance of the passageway. "Both excellencies are fatigued from the long journey. Please go in first." Fei Shen led both of them inside. "His lordship has prepared a banquet to welcome both excellencies at the residence." Slightly surprised, Wang Xian said, "This humble subordinate is merely following orders. How am I deserving of such favor from his lordship?" "Don't worry about it," Yu Xiaozhe said with a smile. "His lordship is never extravagant when he hosts feasts. It's just some common dishes over an invitation of wine and tea. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Wang Xian is swift and efficient in making arrangements for the military grains." Shen Zequan turned his head to the side and said to Xiao Qiye behind him, "What's even rarer is that he is able to successfully negotiate with the yamen of the various prefectures. It's too gross an injustice to put him in Cha province." Xiao Qiye secured the bandage for Shen Zequan and said, "He could even drag out and stall my account, so of course he's also in his element dealing with the various prefectures' yamen." Shen Zequan sucked in a slight breath at Xiao Qiye's movements. "The tyrant of Chu capital is going to break my waist." This waist, Xiao Qiye sized it up and brought his palms around to the front to lead Shen Zequan back to his own chest, "is so slender it looks like I could encircle it within my grasp. That's why there is the saying Shen Yao Pan bin slender of frame and graying of temples." Shen Zequan's back clung against Xiao Qiye's chest. "So, envy not, my beloved Xiao Lang. In any case, it's all mine," Xiao Qiye said. "The only ones doing the envying here are the others." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Ji Ran, who was under the eaves, watched as the maidservants entered and exited. Putting his palms together, he tilted his head and said to Ding Tao, "We have a guest." There was more to this little monk's words than meets the ear. Ding Tao folded his arms and answered in great understanding. You will still get your vegetarian dishes. His lordship has given the instructions earlier. Ji Ran immediately showed a delighted expression. And Itab ha, Ding Tao Gurgr, you're so much smarter than the fishes in the pond. Shenzhequan, who had been in the principal room, had already stepped out. Preparation was all in order in the side hall, and the various gentlemen had already all taken their seats. When Wang Xian and Yu Xiaozhe arrived, they first paid their obeisances to the prefectural lord before exchanging pleasantries with the gentlemen at the table. The depositing of grains in the 6 prefectures is a major event of utmost importance for the entire year, Shenzhequan said. Yujing and Minchen have worked hard. During the autumn harvest in the 8th month, the various regions would sort out the grains and put them into storage at the granaries. Following right after in the 9th month, they would calculate the surplus grain reserves in all localities to prepare for the winter. Going by Zongbo's process, there was no way Libei's military grains could be prepared this fast, but Wang Xian had been making preparations as early as the 6th month. Once the defensive battle in Duan province was over, he asked the garrison troops of the various prefectures to allocate manpower to start harvesting the grains. They made it in time for the lull in the 8th month, giving the 6 prefectures that were about to supply military grains time to catch their breath. Wang Xian hurriedly stood up to bow in return. This humble subordinate was just following orders. It is all due to his lordship's foresight. I heard Tantai who vented his anger on you. Xiao Qi Ye, having not moved his chopsticks yet, said to Wang Xian with a smile. General Tantai is concerned about the war, so it's only natural for him to ask about the preparations. We had a pleasant talk in Dun province. Wang Xian knew that Tantai who was chosen by Xiao Qi to head down to Dun province. He had military merits to his name and he was also in the position to get his say in before Shenzhequan, so of course Wang Xian could not offend him. Those rumors are not to be believed. Looks like this incident had really taken place. This was not the first time Tantai who had clashed with the civil officials. He was impatient by nature and he was Xiao Qi's trusted aide. While in Dun province, he and the Yamen functionaries could still mutually tolerate each other at first. His military reports were submitted directly to Shenzhequan's desk, and he had no need to be supervised by the Yamen. By all logic, there should not have been conflicts between both parties. However, the Dun province garrison troops, having been rewarded several times, boasted of being a branch of the imperial army. By the time of the Duan province battle, they were reveling in the height of their glory among the 6 prefectures' garrison troops. The preparations of military grains were a matter between Wang Xian and the various prefectures' tax circuit intendants. Despite of this fact, Tantai who dared to interfere and concern himself with it. When peace reigned in the world, discord between generals and ministers merely meant that they could not work together, but in times of turmoil, dissension was a critical issue that could affect the overall situation. Kong Ling, being the insightful person that he was, stepped forth to smooth things over. General Tantai comes from the imperial army, and he has gone through thick and thin together with Libei. Long when Second Master decided to fight the 12 tribes, he had discussed with me the issue of military grains. Your lordship, General Tantai has deployed troops to come to the rescue several times, so he's naturally more attentive when it comes to the military grains. He turned his head aside to smile at Yao Wenyu. Yuan Zhou and I often ask about the fortification of the city walls too after the fright we got from the defensive battle. The gentleman laughed at this, and the atmosphere eased a little. Yao Wenyu then said to Wang Xian, Brother Minchen once served as the Ministry of Revenue Secretary. Censor-in-Chief Sen often praised Brother Minchen for being efficient in his work, and it can indeed be seen from the preparation of military grains just how extraordinary Brother Minchen's capabilities are. Yao Wenyu's words were partially true. Wang Xian was indeed capable, but he was not that conspicuous. Shuai Zhuo, who often had dealings with the Ministry of Revenue at that time and was in Hai Lianji's good graces more. In addition, the Ministry of Revenue had always been under the control of the noble clans. So even when the Ministry of Personnel wanted to promote Wang Xian after taking the imperial censor's testimonials into consideration, they could not manage to do so. But even if what he said was not true, Yao Wenyu had still accorded him the respect he was due. Wang Xian had been an official in the capital for a long time, so how could he not understand? Yao Wenyu's intent was Shen Zequin's intent. Since Yao Wenyu was willing to speak up to placate him, then he should leave it at that. The incident had already been made known, and his lordship and second master would naturally have their own follow-up arrangements. Wang Xian bowed. How would I dare to accept praise from you, Enjo? This humble subordinate is truly unworthy. With this, he relaxed a little and continued, as for the military grains, this humble subordinate still needs General Tantai's advice in certain aspects. Fortunately, the general did not mind and carefully analyzed the pros and cons with me. To tell your lordship and second master the truth, this humble subordinate might have managed all that relates to the military grains back in Chu capital, but when all is said and done, I've never handled supplies over a long distance. It was all General Tantai who advised me in detail on issues such as the consumption of grain wagons and the increase and decrease of military supplies. Kong Ling cast a glance at Zhou Gui, who was a short distance away, and inwardly lamented with a sigh, as expected from an official from the capital, smart and perceptive. He can get his message across in much fewer words. Zhou Gui was also here regarding the preparations of military grains, although he had arrived several days before Wang Xian and Yu Xiaoze. At present, he was sitting in his seat listening carefully to the conversations, finding this Wang Xian to be measured in his conduct and tactful with his words. He could not understand why Cheng Feng was looking at him. They discussed a little more about official matters, and Shen Zequin then invited Wang Xian to take a seat, thereby signaling the start of the feast. ******. When they returned to their room at night, Xiao Qiye slipped out of his clothes, his expression one of displeasure. Shen Zequin spoke as he switched out of his shoes. You know how Lao Hu is, he's not one to become arrogant because of his achievements. Xiao Qiye was still in the midst of disrobing. The Dun province garrison troops are all soldiers recruited from the two prefectures of Fan province and Deng province, and there are a number of bandits among them. It will not bode well if military discipline is lacking. Shen Zequin saw the candlelight reflected on the side of the wolf on Xiao Qiye's back, looking very awe-inspiring indeed, so he stretched out a finger and poked it. Xiao Qiye backhandedly grabbed hold of that finger and gave it a squeeze. He continued, I know Lao Hu will not get all puffed up with his achievements, but the fear is that he might get egged on by others to have the Dun province garrison troops to emulate the imperial army. The imperial army was a slippery bunch who only knew to skive on the job, but that was only when there was nothing else going on. When there was really a war impending, they were the first to draw their blade and charge onto the battlefield. The imperial army dared to play the ruffian because they were not ruffians at all. All the 20,000 men were soldiers that Xiao Qiye went to great lengths to select. They were all from proper military households, and they were naturally a leg above the others when trained. The original batch of soldiers from the imperial army in Chu capital were once given the cold shoulder, and that had built up their strength of character. They knew when to go all out and when to pull back, and that was definitely not something the Dun province garrison troops and the like would be able to do anytime soon. This time, I'll lead the Libai armored cavalry to advance from the east. If Chu capital plans to seize the opportunity to attack Zongbo, Xiao Qiye turned back, the Dun province garrison troops are all that you will have to rely on. Yin Chang's death in battle was undoubtedly a heavy blow. The Tse province garrison troops that were just beginning to take shape now needed a new commander, but scouting for a suitable candidate took time. The Duan province garrison troops had taken a beating and suffered casualties, while the Fan province and Deng province garrison troops had only been recently established. The only ones that could be truly put to use were the Dun province garrison troops and imperial cavalry, and even then, the imperial cavalry were low in numbers. Tan Tai Long could die for Dun province, and so can Tan Tai Hu. Shen Zequan tilted his head up to look at Xiao Qi Ye. Don't worry about the rear as you advance eastward. I naturally have my own means. The 8 great training divisions often carry the reputation for being incompetent, but Han Cheng is now dead, and the new viceroy is still unknown. Xiao Qi Ye's eyes betrayed his worry. If Shuizaiozhuo has a good candidate. Without the vice grip of the noble clan, the 8 great training divisions could re-recruit. I'll leave 5,000 imperial army soldiers to you, Xiao Qi Ye said. ******. Several days later, Tan Tai Hu hurried to Duan province as he was ordered to. The moment he stepped into the residence, he fell to his knees before Xiao Qi Ye. Master. Tan Tai Hu had yet to say his piece when Xiao Qi Ye said, "You are now his lordship's general." Tan Tai Hu lowered his head and changed his tune. "Second master. Did some shitty official lodge a complaint against me here? They came into the territory to prepare military grains and still wanted to audit Dun province's grains and land tax ledgers. Wang Xian accused my Dun province garrison troops of squandering public funds right in front of so many people in the Yamen." He raised his head in indignation. "Second master, of the garrison troops in the 6 prefectures, our Dun province garrison troops is the one that can provide timely assistance. In order to fight the Biancha Baldies, we provide reinforcements all around, so our military expenditure will definitely be much higher than others." Does he have to go harping on and on and on about this? His lordship is aware of this too. With one arm propped up on his knee, Xiao Qi Ye leaned sideways as he turned his thumb ring and said nothing in reply. Chen Yang, who was waiting in attendance at the side, signaled to Tan Tai Hu with his eyes several times, but the latter refused to look at Chen Yang at all. Tan Tai Hu knew what Xiao Qi Ye's temper was like, but he was furious deep down. Forcing his anger down, he continued, "If Wang Xian has something to say, then say it to my face. Why stoop so low to frame me behind my back? What's the fucking difference between him and those officials who shamelessly currying favors for personal gains in Chu capital? He said I squander public funds. Bah. And what about him wasting grains in Cha province with Luo Mu? You find it a gross injustice." Xiao Qi Ye raised his eyes. Tan Tai Hu saw Xiao Qi Ye's expression and could not help but feel a lump in his throat. "I brave untold dangers with second master, so how can they trample over me like this?" His lordship knows of the account too, yet he doesn't reprimand that Wang Xian. I can't take it lying down." "You can't take it lying down," Xiao Qi Ye said in a sudden, frosty tone. "And so you had someone oust Wang Xian from the Yamen? Is that your area of jurisdiction? When I transferred you to Dun province, Lan Zhou made it clear that the civil administration doesn't outrank you, and likewise, you don't outrank them either." Tan Tai Hu's chest heaved. "Even so, he can't speak that way and cause the brothers under my command to be disillusioned. I've looked through the accounts of the Dun province garrison troops. After the battle in Duan province, you transferred troops back to the city and did nothing else but first call together the local gentry to wine and feast." Xiao Qi Ye's expression was gloomily somber. "The money for the open banquet where guests are served as they arrive comes from Dun province's public funds." "How very impressive of you, Tan Tai Hu." His lordship rewarded the Dun province garrison troops handsomely back in Duan province, but you know not to be content, and you even have to slap your own face in an attempt to impress beyond your means by rewarding the soldiers with a feast. If you ask me, you're the one who disillusioned me more. Look at how easy it was for Yin Chang to take down Fan province back then. When the Tse province garrison troops returned, his lordship hosted a banquet to reward them, but when it came to the Dun province garrison troops, we only get a monetary reward." Tan Tai Hu forced his voice down. "Second master, can several taels of silver buy the lives of my brothers?" It's on behalf of his lordship that I'm. Xiao Qiye abruptly jolted to his feet, and his shadow instantly enveloped Tan Taihu. Second master. Chen Yang dropped to his knees with a thud. He's simple-minded and he indeed did it just for that meal. Nevertheless, squandering state funds is wrong of him. Second master may just punish him. The freedom that Shen Zequan gave to Tan Taihu was an act of kindness, but Tan Taihu could not hold this kindness hostage to make demands. Today, he dared to take the decision in his own hands because of his discontent, so he could very well disregard his lordship and overstep his authority to take action tomorrow. He had several conflicts with the civil officials several times, and each time, Shen Zequan had suppressed it without so much as a word, all in consideration for Xiao Qiye. Tan Taihu knew he had spoken out of turn in his desperation. He kept his head lowered, but could not bring himself to plead for mercy. Give him the ledger of the sealed granary in Dun province. Xiao Qiye held up Longli blade and wore it at the side of his waist. Let him see this piece of land that Tan Tai long defended with his life. Chen Yang took down the ledger and presented it before Tan Taihu. Your soldiers, Xiao Qiye stressed these words, could eat well because the commoners of Tse province and Dun province tightened their belts to make every money and every grain count. There are all kinds of delicacies at the open banquet, but my Lanzhou, despite his sickness, is still eating wild vegetables from Duan province with the various advisors. Tan Taihu looked at that ledger book in detail, and his eyes could not help but reddened. He had realized the errors of his ways, although he still attempted to argue. The granaries were in abundance the last time that I saw them in Dun province. Xiao Qiye whistled, raised an arm to receive Meng, and left without so much as glancing back. End chapter.